Hey everyone, just checking in with this week's Monday make. Obviously last weekend was Easter weekend, so I didn't do one last week, but I am back and I've had the privilege to be at Onstage in Auckland for the weekend, and we got to see the new annual catalogue, which is absolutely amazing. Far exceeded my expectations this year, which is really saying something, and I cannot wait to share all of the awesome stuff with you. But at the moment it is all under embargo, so that everyone worldwide gets the chance to enjoy their on-stage events in their different time zones and everything. We keep it all under wraps until everyone has seen it worldwide all at once, and then we can start sharing some things with you. So I will share some bits later in the week, and of course as we get closer to that new catalogue being launched, which is still a wee way away, not till the 1st of June. But anyway, on to today's Monday make, and we are going to be doing some colouring on Crumb Cake cardstock today, and we are using the Blooms and Wishes stamp set. So the first bit that we are going to do is to take our Crumb Cake cardstock, and I am going to stamp first of all using our Whisper White craft ink. So this is our nice sticky ink that sits on top of the surface of your cardstock, and I like to stamp with this first for this particular technique, because it really makes the colours then pop off the Crumb Cake card when I go and colour it in the next step. So the first thing is just to stamp your images, and we are going to stamp a few little flowers down on our Crumb Cake. Now you want your stamp to be really well inked up, nice and juicy, so that you get a nice coverage of that Whisper White ink on your card. And I'm just layering up my images. I'm going to stamp a few different ones here, and some in the top corner here as well. Now you could of course mask your images and add extra flowers in if you wanted it more floral in the corner. You could add as many as you like. I'm keeping it pretty simple for today's video, so though that's enough stamping for now. Now with the craft ink, it does take a wee while to dry, so once you've done your stamping you want to either go away and have a cup of coffee or something else, or you can use the first heat setting on your heat tool and just heat it for a couple of minutes to set that Whisper White ink so that it's nice and dry before we start colouring on it. Now I've already gone ahead and prepared one earlier so that you didn't have to sit there and listen to my heat tool whirring away. So I will just switch this one out and bring this one in. So now we are ready to colour, and we are going to colour directly onto the Whisper White ink that we have already stamped. And for this I'm using the Watercolour Pencils. Now you can use just normal standard colouring pencils, but I do find that the watercolour pencils are just a little bit softer in the lead, and so they give you a much nicer blending action when you're colouring, and a nicer finished result. So if you've got the watercolour pencils, then definitely use those, and if you don't have them, then you can head to my online store and order them, because you'll of course want them for all sorts of other projects as well. So I'm going to now use my watercolour pencils, and I'm actually just going to colour straight over the white ink where we have already stamped. And you can colour as much or as little as you like, so you can just keep adding colour with your pencils until you are happy with the colour that you have. So I'm just starting off with a very light touch to start with, just blending colour right around my big flower here. So just very lightly, and this is the Bermuda Bay pencil that I'm using here, just as my first layer of colour. And you can see already how that white base underneath the pencils just makes that colour really pop off the cardstock. You can of course use your colour pencils straight onto the crumb cake card without using the white ink, but I just think that white ink really just lifts the colour, makes it look a little more dramatic. So you are just going to colour as much as you like. You can blend your colours, so I'm going to bring in my Pacific Point now and blend that in over the top as well. And just keep colouring until you get the effect that you want your flowers to have. So if you want a deeper colour, just press a little harder with your pencil and keep going over it a few more times. And if you want a light colour, just a nice and light touch with your pencil. And that allows you to get several shades out of the one pencil. So you would just keep colouring. Now so you don't have to sit and watch me colour all day, because it would take me a wee while. I have one here that I have coloured earlier. So you can see that I've got my blue flower here where I've just shaded my two colours of pencil to give me that extra definition, and the same with my little yellow and pink flowers as well. And I just love how that looks like it's almost three-dimensional because of that little bit of a white border around underneath. So we are going to go ahead and use this on our card now. So the first step that I'm going to do is I'm just going to matte this layer onto a piece of Whisper White, because that just helps to make it pop off even more and brings in the white of your ink. Makes it look quite dynamic. So we're just going to adhere this one first. I'm just using my multi-purpose adhesive. This is my favourite adhesive for layering or adhering all of my layers together. But I know everyone has their own favourite adhesive that they use. The great thing is that we've got so many options that we can choose from. Okay, so the next step, I'm just going to pop that to the side. The next step is I've got a Night of Navy card base. And I've got a piece of the Tutti Frutti Designer Series paper from the Occasions catalogue. So I'm just going to mount this in the middle here as well. Like so. And then to bring in more of that navy, I'm going to use some of the crinkled seam binding ribbon. And I have to say that this is probably my most favourite ribbon of all time. If you haven't used it, then you really should get some, because it is so soft and beautiful, and it ties so nicely and sits so nicely no matter which way you use it. So for today, I'm actually just going to slash it across the background of my card. So I'm just going to put a little bit of snail in under here. I'm not being really too particular about this, and it doesn't really matter where your adhesive goes, because we're going to be putting a layer over the top of this. It's really just to anchor it while I do the next step. So I'm just slashing it across my card front, and then turning it back on itself again here. Now you could of course just use some little bits of ribbon and tuck under the corners, but you know, it's faster just to use the whole piece of ribbon and put it all on there, and it gives a little bit of extra dimension to your card as well. Okay, so we're just going to let that sit there for now. I've got some extra hanging off the end. I'll trim that later, but I'm going to leave it just for now. And we're going to go back to our piece here, because I forgot an important step, which is to add our sentiment. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now this sentiment is Hey Friend, and this comes from the Orange Blossom stamp set, which is another great set for layering up, and this would be another great one that you could colour on your crumb cake with as well. So but I like this fun sentiment, and we're going to stamp this with the Night of Navy ink. And because I'm using photopolymer, I'm just going to bring my Pierce Matte in here to give me a little bit of sponge, and I'm probably going to stamp this crooked now because I'm looking at it on a weird angle so you don't get my head in the camera. Oh, not too bad, it's alright, it'll do. Alright, so now we're going to mount this onto our card front, and to make that ribbon stand out a little more and give it a bit of dimension, I'm actually going to pop it up on dimensionals. I just have to find some. I forgot to get them out of my drawer. Hang on, there we go. So just a few dimensionals spaced around. Oops. Oh, got two. Don't need two, that's a bit greedy. Oh, let's move those over there. And we can just adhere this one down. So now that my ribbon is more anchored with that layer on, now I can go ahead and trim the ends of it, and I'm going to leave them a little bit longer so that they stick over the end of the card just a wee way. Like so. And we are almost done. I think all we need is just some little embellishments. And my favourites at the moment, because you've probably noticed I've used them on just about every card for the last 2 months, is these little enamel accents that we've had for a wee while. And I keep meaning to use and not using them, so now I'm making up for lost time. So I'm just going to put a little splatter of these around the place. No particular way that I'm doing it, just getting some on there, and it just adds a nice little bit of dimension to it. And we're going to put some in the center of our flowers here as well, and for that I'm going to use the little white enamel accents in here. Like so. And if you wanted to, you could add some rhinestones in the mix as well if you wanted to. I'm going to leave it just like that. And that is this week's Monday Make All Done. I hope you enjoy it. And have a great week, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye.